Welcome to Reddit TTS. Almost gave a car ride to a serial killer. My father was in the army for 21 years, retired and moved to a very small town in central Florida. He got bored after a couple of years, and even though we didn't need the money between his retirement and what my mom was making as a bookkeeper tax prep, he wanted to go back to work. He started working at various gas stations, and it being a small town, the owners wouldn't care if I came there and helped him out with stocking the coolers, or even running the register, as long as I didn't sell any beer or smokes. The actual story I'm going to tell took place in 1990, and I remember the date well, because it was shortly after my birthday, and being 15 inches Florida, I had just gotten my learner's permit, and my dad would let me drive him to and from work, just to get some experience on the road, both at day and at night. I was sitting in my usual spot at a table that was set up along the windows, book in hand, feet propped up, and a empty dew on the table along with some snacks. I would generally spend most of the evening that way, reading books, getting up to run the register, stock the cooler at different times. I remember glancing up because something caught my attention that was unusual, and I realized that a lady was walking up our parking lot from the direction of the interstate. This in itself was really strange, because where we were located, you didn't get many people walking, and definitely not walking from the direction of the interstate. I figured she had broken down somewhere, and was coming to use the phone to call for a tow truck or something. I was completely wrong. She came into the store, looked around for a few minutes, and I remember getting just a strange and creepy feeling about her. She walked up to the counter, and started telling my dad a story about how she had gotten stranded and needed a ride up to the next big town up north from us. My dad lets her know that he's working, and there is no way that he can take her. I didn't argue with my dad, since this was completely out of character for him. He was normally chatty with the customers, but for whatever reason he was almost curt and dismissive of her. Turns out, he had a bad vibe about her from the minute he had seen her walking up the drive. Well, she cusses him for a minute, and he basically tells her to get out of the store. She slammed the door open. I thought the glass was going to break from how hard she had slammed it, and then she stalks out of the store and down the driveway. I keep an eye on her, and continue to watch as she makes her way back up to the interstate and then starts up the northbound on-ramp. Almost a year passes, and I'm in my bedroom. Less than a week before my 16th birthday, I hear my dad yelling from the living room, "Son, come in here and look at this." I quickly run to the living room and see my dad pointing at the TV, and look at the mugshot of the lady up on the screen, and immediately remember the lady who had been in the store. Turns out I almost gave a car ride to Alien Wuornos, who was later convicted of being a serial murderer and then later put to death. Still have nightmares about what could have happened. A terrifying ride down Route 50. This occurred in 2009. I was 22 years old and was leaving my home state of California to head east for my corrections job. I was driving down the loneliest highway portion of the route, and it was around 3 a.m. on a Sunday. They don't call it the loneliest highway for nothing. I hadn't seen another soul for at least a half hour. I was getting sleepy, but I was not tired enough to pull over and take a nap, when I saw a broken down car on the side of the highway. I slowed and saw a woman standing next to the car. I approached this woman with caution, rolling down my window just a sliver. Something about her was not right. I could not put my finger on it then, but I know now it was my subconscious screaming, "Red flag! Red flag!" I asked her if she needed me to call a tow truck or a triple for her, and she immediately tried to open my door. I explained to her I didn't feel comfortable letting her in, but I waited until a tow truck came. She immediately got this look of rage on her face, started berating me. "You big man, what am I gonna do to you?" Saying I was cruel for not letting her in. This is where I messed up. I can see this now 10 years later. I begrudgingly unlocked my door, figuring she right. She at most 5'2" and I over 6 feet and have 100 pounds over her. She looked to be about 90 or so pounds. She slips in and I ask her who I can call. This was 10 years ago, so I had a little BlackBerry Slide I think at the time. She starts telling me that she'd just prefer if I give her a ride to the next town. Now I starting to realize I done messed up, because she avoiding eye contact and she fumbling in her purse. And when I mention calling for help, she getting aggressive, demanding I take her to the next town. I so busy trying to fix the situation I miss a man who either was hiding in or near her car. It wasn't until he was almost to my driver's side door that I managed to catch him in my rear view mirror. Flight or fight kicked in. I put my car in drive and sped off right as the man was reaching for my car door. I sped off and heard a ping noise and then my rear view mirror exploding. He was shooting at me. The adrenaline alone had me doing near 90, and by this time homegirl realized in whatever drug-induced stupor she was in her little plan was futile. She started hitting me, telling me to stop and let her out. When I reached enough of a distance I did just that, pulled over and demanded she got out. She started going for the oversized purse she had, but I had enough. I was literally shaking with adrenaline. I reached over, opened the door and pretty much shoved her out. I tried grabbing for her purse but she managed to hold onto it, not before dumping half of what was in there on my passenger seat. I sped off, my door still open. I waited till I got a good distance from her and slammed it shut and locked it. I clenched the wheel and drove, if on something autopilot. It was not until later that morning I pulled into a Denny did I realize how close I was to pretty much dying. I had a good cry and then realized a bunch of her things spilled onto my passenger seat. Most of it was nasty wadded up napkins, a few tubes of lipstick and drug paraphernalia. I had considered calling the cops, or finding a highway patrol officer. I did do something stupid. I tossed all her things that had fallen into a trash bag and threw them away. At the time I had the dream of becoming a cop, and knew if I got caught with drug paraphernalia that would be impossible. I didn't think they believed me. The drug paraphernalia was not mine. I noticed a cop at the gas station across from the Denny, and told him what happened. He pretty much berated me for pulling over and then letting her in. He did say he'd look into it, but I doubt he did. I was so shaken I pretty much picked up my pancakes and then left to continue on my way. I never did replace that mirror. I ended up selling my car, as where I lived didn't require me to have one. Till this day, 10 years later, I hesitate to stop and help stranded motorists. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment and subscribe.